Hey, everyone. Andy Hall. This is the Disappointed Cat Morning Show. Is that what we're doing here? Are we doing all kinds of fun things? What are the stories that we're covering today? I'm glad you asked. We're going to be talking about weed. We're going to talk about the insane benefits that the legalization of weed has given to several states. U.S. intelligence report. Filibuster. News about getting rid of the filibuster. News about changing the filibuster. Crazy video with the shaman. News about getting rid of the filibuster. News about changing the filibuster. And I have an echo. Crazy video with the shaman. News about getting rid of the filibuster. Now, maybe that fixed it. I think it did. I'm sorry for that. And then, of course, we're going to have a little bit about Japan, too. But first, before we get into that, let's do news. No, let's do video. Let's do something funny.
Sir, I have some new ideas.
Hit me.
What if women's shoes were made too narrow en masse?
Marvelous. That'll cause a lot of pain, right?
They'll literally be bleeding.
That's good, but is that sustainable for them?
Oh no, they'll sometimes just walk home barefoot because it's so uncomfortable.
Nice, but no one's gonna buy shoes if they're unwearable.
They will once we add breaking into the lexicon.
What's that?
It means that pain is not only a normal but a necessary part of getting a new pair of stylish shoes.
Well, call me a shoe because you just broke me in.
Well, let me pump you up, sir, because you haven't heard about Project High Heel.
Funny guy. Hey, I hope everyone's doing well. Delayed ventriloquizing himself. That's true, Blazing. I believe I have solved the minor technical problem. I think it's been resolved. And we are. Hope everyone's doing well. Derek Cruz, how you doing, Blazing? Tobin Templeman. And everyone in the chat watching. Good morning. It's Wednesday. Is it hump day? I think it's hump day. One step closer to getting a vaccine. Probably, hopefully, in case you have, and maybe you've already gotten your shots. And congratulations. I think it's 20% or so of the U.S. population has gotten at least one shot so far. Good morning, Jess. So let's do. I just want to let you know too. The last couple of days, I either forgot to upload videos or I forgot to put up memes. But this time, I double checked my work and made sure everything is on point today. So I'm pretty happy about that. The first story is going to be about the legalization of marijuana, but before that, let's do memes. Digital Bookworm, how you doing? No, actually, I want to talk about banners and this particular banner here. Did you go to a religious school? See, I was thinking about asking this question because I went to a religious school for kindergarten and I got tossed out of my religious school in kindergarten because of my disability. I know my buddy, my co-host, Jack Paterko on the night show, the late show, went to a religious school, I believe. He had some kind of indoctrination. I think it was one of those Jesuit schools. And I've been told by people who've gone to religious schools that the best way to make an atheist is to go to a Catholic school. That's me. I only spent maybe a few weeks at a very young age at the kindergarten. It was a good Baptist kindergarten too. So there was a lot of focus on standing where you're supposed to be standing, sitting where you're supposed to be sitting. And of course, Jesus everywhere, looking down on you. I think maybe they were using Jesus as a way of controlling behavior. Could that be possible? Is that a little bit too cynical? But that was and of course, I went to Sunday school, but that's not really school, right? You didn't really learn anything. But for those of you who have gone and been indoctrinated or were indoctrinated in religious school, I tip my hat to you for getting out of it, right? Now that's interesting. Jess M says, I went to a Catholic high school for my final 2 years, huh? You're already an atheist? Good for you. Good for you. Brain Bug. How you doing, Brain Bug? Yeah, so I'm happy to say that I was only in a religious school for a short period of time because we didn't have, of course, universal kindergarten back in the 70s when I was growing up. So parents had to pay for it here. And I don't think it really affected me negatively. If anything, I will say this about the religious kindergarten I went to, at least they recognized I had a major speech impediment and got me into services. So I can say that was a positive effect of me being in the Christian kindergarten. And one of the things I remember, one of my earliest memories of being at this school is having, at the beginning of the day, we would all be standing and hearing, I don't know, morning announcements. I don't know why they would do morning announcements with kids in kindergarten, but that's what they did. And I would have my own little tack on the floor, not a tack, but it was like, it was a linoleum floor and there were like nails hammered into it. And I remembered I had to stand right on that nail in the floor. Hey, Samuel, happy St. Patrick's Day. Indeed, happy St. Patrick's Day. All right. So let's go to memes. Let's go to memes. Cat meme. Cat says, I'm angry. It's okay to be angry. It's good to feel a range of emotions. No range, just anger. Maybe that cat needs to take a stand-up comedy class. Maybe that cat needs to do that. So it could turn its anger into laughs, into hilarity. Maybe it should start a blog, maybe a YouTube channel. That's what this cat should do. It should find a way to work through its full range of emotions, which is just anger. All right, so every once in a while, the media rediscovers the fact that there's this generation in between boomers and millennials. It's called Generation X, and I happen to be part of Generation X. And I dislike it. I dislike it when the media remembers that Generation X is a thing, because there's this lovely conflict going on between millennials and boomers. Sometimes Gen Z gets thrown in there. And millennials have pretty much sat out the generation wars. People forget that we're here. We're happy about that overall from what I've seen of my other millennial friends. And this meme speaks something about my generation, about us Xers. Let's see. True. I'm a Gen Xer, so I adapt to new technology like a millennial, but get angry about it like a boomer. Oh, that is so true for me. That is so true. And when I say I adapt to new technology, I ask my girlfriend to do things, to explain things to me. Like, how did you do that? How did you do that? She explains it to me. I get a little bit of anger in my heart. I'm not going to lie to you, like a boomer does in terms of technology. Now, there are many boomers, of course, that are tech savvy, right? But for me, I get angry at first, and then I make the adaptation. It's like, why did this change on Facebook? Why did this change? It was fine. They had to do an update. Now it's all different. But I know to be quiet about that in my personal life because it just makes me seem just going senile, incompetent, out of touch. Oh, hey. I put a link to the the Atheist Comedy Burrito, the Facebook group that I run, of course, on Facebook. It's in the chat. Brainbug says, you're now in Club Burrito, Tobin Templeman. You'll get your tunic in the mail in a few days. And the funny thing about the tunic, looks like a burrito. You can wrap yourself up like one. See, that's the beautiful thing about the tunic. There's no tunic, everyone. There's no tunic, but you know that. All right, last joke. Last joke before we go right into the news cycle. Here we go. I'm so confused when people don't drink coffee. What do you do? Get an appropriate amount of sleep? Nerd. I actually envy people who get an appropriate amount of sleep. I was up at 4 o'clock this morning. Actually, I'm lying. About 3:45. Couldn't go back to sleep. Well, I went back to sleep at 6. Got up at 7:30. So I admire people that can actually get a solid 7 or 8 hours of sleep consistently. I am not one of those people. I haven't been for years. So coffee is important. First story, the data on legalizing weed. You probably remember when weed was about to become legalized, and the fight to legalize weed. And there were a lot of conservatives going, "Oh, it's the end of the world. If you legalize weed, it's going to be like as if you legalize gay marriage. The whole system's going to fall." Well, it turns out that legalizing weed is good for everyone. Good for everyone? Good for everyone. Links to the stories in the description, everyone. Here it is. This is from NPR, by the way. The data on legalizing weed, I'm just going to go through the high points. We're just going to go through the bullet points about all the benefits of legalizing weed. Here it comes. Well, it turns out that legalization of marijuana didn't substantially affect crime rates. Proponents of legalizing weed claimed it would reduce violent crimes. Opponents said it would increase violent crimes. A study by the Cato Institute finds overall violent crime has neither soared nor plummeted in the wake of marijuana legalization. Legalization seems to have had little or no effect on traffic accidents and fatalities. Opponents of marijuana legalization argued it would wreak havoc on the road. A few studies have found that's not the case. Economists Benjamin Hansen, Keaton S. Miller, and Caroline Weber, for instance, I said Weber because that's the German pronunciation of the name. I'm sure she pronounces it Weber, for instance, found evidence suggesting it had no effect on trends in traffic fatalities in both Colorado and Washington. So it seems that fear-mongering is just that. It's fear and mongering with no real basis in reality. Traffic fatalities didn't go up due to marijuana. Crime rates did not soar because of marijuana legalization. But what about the good things? What about the real benefits? Oh, here it is. Legalization of marijuana has created jobs, and lots of jobs. A new report by Leafly and Whitney Economics finds the marijuana industry is booming. In 2020 alone, they calculate it created 77,000 jobs across the country. There's about 321,000 jobs in the marijuana industry. That's more than the mining industry. Before I get to the second point, more people right now have jobs relating to marijuana, than in the mining industry in this country. It is a huge job producer, a huge job producer. Brainbug says, my least favorite type of mongering is the fear mongering, I imagine. What about a fishmonger, right? Is there, I think there's something called a fishmonger, person monger the fish. I don't know. Oh, blazing. St. Patrick, I think, is the myth about him getting rid of all the snakes in Ireland. Yeah, it's a shoddy metaphor for Christianizing, getting rid of pagans, basically, the native religion of Ireland. But yeah, and the myth is that St. Patrick, he got all the serpents, the snakes out of Ireland. Oh, well, you know, we can get into the Irish religious wars and everything. That English, Scot colonialism of Ireland, the famine, that, believe me, I've had many drunken conversations about this. And if you haven't watched the Atheist Drinking Out Loud show that I do once a month, occasionally we'll delve into Irish politics or, you know, especially if there's someone from Ireland on the show with us. John Hamill was on one day and we talked about the black and tans, the religious conflict in Ireland. Yeah, I could go on for days about the religious conflicts in Ireland. All right, but let's get back to so what we've ascertained is that no increase of traffic fatalities due to the legalization of marijuana. Tons of people are now working jobs in the marijuana industry. More people are working in the marijuana industry than mining in this country. But wait, is there more? Is there more goodness coming from marijuana, the legalization of the herb? Yes, there is. Legalization is good for state budgets. I think this is underselling it, but let me continue. Tax revenue from legal recreational marijuana has surpassed everyone's expectations. Colorado usually collects more than $20 million a month. In 2020, the state collected a total of $387 million. The California collects more than $50 million a month. You can find similar stories in other states that have legalized. 50 million extra dollars California has per month due to legalization of marijuana. Colorado has 20 million extra dollars per month due to legalization of marijuana. You know, it makes you think to yourself, why didn't states just do this earlier? Why didn't they just do the obvious thing and legalize marijuana, especially when it was well known, right, among the smarties that marijuana is not physically addictive? Why didn't they? Could it be because of conservatives? Could it be because of toxic Christianity? Yes and yes, that's why. The question for the day is the Protestant God not the same as the Catholic God? Yeah, no, yeah. Terms and conditions apply, though, I think, Samuel. I think that's it. So let's go to the last bit of positive news about the legalization of marijuana. Legalization may be good for states' workers' comp programs. This is interesting. A new working paper by economists Rahi Abouk, I'm sorry, I tried, and Kisha M. Gibmeyer, Johanna Catherine McLean, and David Powell finds that states that legalized recreational marijuana saw a significant decline in the use of their worker compensation systems. They estimate the number of workers aged 40 to 62 who received income from workers' comp fell by about 20% following legalization. Evidence suggests that the reason for the decline is that marijuana provides, quote, an additional form of pain management therapy, unquote, that reduces the use of opioids, which are highly addictive and can be much more debilitating. Marijuana's effects on reducing opioid abuse has been documented in other studies. So workers' comp programs, less people are using workers' comp program, and these are middle-aged people, 40 to 62, using marijuana instead of opioids and helping out the whole system. So what have we ascertained? State budgets are booming because of marijuana legalization. Traffic fatalities haven't increased because of the legalization of marijuana. Crime hasn't soared because of the legalization of marijuana. And people aren't using workers' comp programs as much, by as much as 20% due to the legalization of marijuana. It's almost as if the country was being restrained by conservatives. and yeah. Let's see. Well, this is the problem with digital bookworm too. In the same study, digital bookworm says, but they tax it so much it's cheaper to get on the black market. This is a problem too, isn't it? The study or the article that I just took bits and pieces from, it does say that the price of marijuana has not gone down. So you would think with the legalization of it, the price would drop, but it hasn't. And that's, I'm going to guess, that's one of the reasons, is because, you know, it's just taxed so much. Here it is. Blazing. This is an interesting comparison between Catholic God and Protestant God. Catholic God requires you to pay and pray off your sins. The Protestant one just forgives you for praying. There's a point to that. There's some point to that. All right. And Blazing says, once again, in the 60s, the U.S. was in its boom. It was also the hippie decade. Who would have known it was connected to the U.S. landing on the moon and everyone being stoned out of their gourd? Maybe having happy citizens creates a happy society. Maybe having happy people means that they can actually be productive, because the whole lie is that if you have if a lot of people have marijuana, if it's legalized, and no one's going to be motivated to work. That's not true. All right. What's the next story? I'm glad that you asked, chat. Listeners, viewers, what's our next story? I'm sure that you've heard all about this. We're going to cover it. You may have heard it, you may not have. I don't know. U.S. intelligence report says Russia used Trump allies to influence 2020 election with goal of denigrating Biden. What? The Russians were acting to help Trump in the last election? Who would have thought that? Who would have guessed that that was a thing? This is from CNN. The intelligence community said in a landmark report Tuesday that the Russian government meddled in the 2020 election with an influence campaign denigrating President Joe Biden and supporting former President Donald Trump, detailing a massive disinformation push that successfully targeted and was openly embraced by Trump's allies. Russia's objectives were not limited to hurting Biden's candidacy and aiding Trump's reelection bid, the report says. As U.S. intelligence found that Moscow also sought to undermine, quote, public confidence in the electoral process and exacerbate social-political divisions in the U.S. Overall, the report released by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence provides the most comprehensive assessment of foreign threats to the 2020 elections to date, detailing extensive influence operations by U.S. adversaries, including Russia and Iran, that sought to undermine confidence in the democratic process, in addition to targeting specific presidential candidates. Who would have thought that the Russians would be trying to influence the election for Trump? Who would have guessed that? All right. And let's see, next. It also confirms what was largely assumed and barely hidden last year. Trump and his closest allies publicly embraced Russia's disinformation campaign against Biden, met with Kremlin-linked figures who were part of the effort and promoted their conspiracy theories. The report said the most aggressive foreign attempt to undercut Trump came from Iran, but Iran didn't actively promote Biden, and their efforts were smaller than the Russian operation. But while the report concludes that multiple foreign adversaries did attempt to interfere, it also notes there were no indications that any foreign actor attempted to alter any technical aspect of the voting process in 2020 elections, including voter registration, casting ballots, vote tabulation, or reporting results. So in other words, there was an influence campaign in the last election in 2020. But at no point did the Russians or the Iranians target voting machines, voting records. Well, I mean, you could just have Republicans mess around with that, right? You don't really need the Russians and the Iranians to do that. You know, the Russians could do that on their own. The Republicans. What I'm saying is that the Republicans could easily mess around. They didn't need the Russians. Let's see. China is also mentioned, but a very different context than Russia and Iran. We assessed that China did not deploy interference efforts and considered, but did not deploy influence efforts intended to change the outcome of the U.S. presidential election, the report states. That finding appears to undercut claims by the Trump administration that Beijing was interfering in the election to help Biden win, a message top officials pushed for months ahead of November, prompting backlash from Democrats who accused them of attempting to equivocate the threat posed by China and Russia. You see, it seems like Trump, not only was he using Russian talking points, but of course, Trump was also saying, oh, the Chinese are just as bad as the Russians. And it turns out that the Chinese really didn't have their fingers on the scale of the U.S. election. And it makes sense from China because, you know, they deal with Trump. He's an aggressive idiot. And they probably felt like they could handle an aggressive idiot. And they felt like they could handle Joe Biden. I mean, that's my interpretation of events right there. So why would the Chinese have incentives to mess around with our election? And it turns out in this report, they did not. The Russians did. Hey, Wild Eden, how you doing? Good to see you here. All this God talk is making me hungry for wine and crackers. Indeed. Indeed. And back to the marijuana issue. And if you're just tuning in, the first story we covered was that how marijuana doesn't cause more, to summarize it. Marijuana, the legalization of marijuana doesn't increase traffic fatalities. It does increase the amount of money states get for taxes by a significant amount, and it creates a ton of jobs. Blazing Wizard Pope says, and Denmark may not have legalized weed as such, but we do have a big open weed market called Freetown, Christiania. And we are not prosecuted for possession like in the US. It's a fine at most. Simply Secularist Dave says, and this is a good observation too, Dave. The only place you'll find more sick people than in a hospital is in a church, and these people who could have been helped by CBD advances in modern medicine are resisting it, possibly protesting it. I've said this many times, Dave, in chat, that there is an incentive for religious leaders in the US to make life miserable. There is an incentive, a perverse incentive, because the more miserable the society is, the more people turn to God. So I'm not surprised that, by your assessment, Dave. All right. We're like burning through the news stories today, everyone. Burning through. What do we got? A halftime show? We're like 27 minutes into this show. So let's do the halftime show.
Hey, it's me, your scumbag dad. I'm gonna take you to the mall so we can film some TikToks. Don't forget to hit the whoa, okay?
Oh my god, are you filming TikToks with your kid?
No, just trying to be a good dad.
That's so cool.
I've been trading Forex so I can take care of my kid.
So sweet.
All right, look, here's a magazine and some chicken nuggets. Wait in the car. Hey, back to the mall. Don't forget to hit the whoa.
Oh my god, are you filming a TikTok with your kid?
Just trying to be a good dad,
Cute.
Take care of my kid.
That's so sweet.
Chicken Nuggets magazine.
Oh, he's funny. He has a variety of these videos about scumbag dads. Dark comedy is sometimes the best comedy. Hey, Theo, how's it going? Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. Right? No, what else was St. Patrick known for? Explaining the Trinity with using a 3-leaf clover. That was another thing St. Patrick was famous for. What was it? So getting the snakes out of Ireland, which is just a cheap metaphor for getting rid of the native religion, Christianizing Ireland, and explaining the Trinity in the 3-leaf clover, which of course doesn't make any sense since the Trinity doesn't make any sense. But hey, it's good propaganda. All right. So what are we going to be doing next? Filibuster? We're going to be talking about the filibuster. Hope for the filibuster. Now, if you're on the 3 p.m. show, now you may say, Andy, you're just playing Jenga. You're just doing Jenga at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Sure, I am. But the thing is, we do discuss legitimate issues in the chat. And I was talking about yesterday, one of the most important issues that we're not hearing enough about is about the Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. being made states, because the idea is that we want to stack the Senate. We want to stack the Senate with blue senators, right? 4 Democratic senators would be wonderful. It would be fantastic. And one of the things that prevents statehood for Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. is the filibuster. So the filibuster has to be changed a bit. Hey, Paul Camish, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. And here is news about the filibuster. Biden backs filibuster reform after top Senate Republican says Democrats would pay if it's scrapped. Oh, it's not going to be scrapped more than likely. It's going to be hobbled. It's not going to be scrapped more than likely. And we've talked about this many times on this channel, is how more than likely the Democrats are not going to get rid of the filibuster, but they'll carve out certain areas that the filibuster isn't going to be used. For an example, in reconciliation, you don't need, you can't filibuster bills. With nominating, when the president nominates people for his cabinet and for offices, the filibuster doesn't work. There's no filibuster. It's a straight 50% vote. But this can actually change things quite a bit, this filibuster reform that they're talking about. And it is radical. I just want to say this. I mean, considering where we are now with the filibuster in the Senate, what Biden is suggesting is radical. Well, what he is supporting. Washington, this is from Reuters. President Joe Biden on Tuesday backed reforming rather than scrapping the filibuster after Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell warned Democrats that ending the long-standing Senate procedure that can block partisan legislation would bring the Democratic president's agenda to a standstill. Top Democrats, including the two highest-ranking party members of the Senate, have stepped up rhetoric in recent days about the future of the filibuster, which requires support from 60 of the chamber's 100 members to pass most legislation, effectively giving power to the minority party in the closely divided chamber. Why doesn't the U.S. federal government work? Why does the president have so much power? It's in part because of the filibuster. You see, when the legislative branch doesn't legislate, when it doesn't execute on the matters it should execute, the power naturally flows from the legislative branch of the government to the executive. Once again, when the legislative branch doesn't do what it does, the executive starts just cranking out executive orders. It just starts doing things maybe it shouldn't be doing. It becomes overempowered, and the American presidency is overpowered to begin with. And the solution of getting the Senate to work again is filibuster reform. With the current Senate split 50-50, Democrats have said they may need to do away with filibuster past Biden's priorities, including a bill already approved by the House of Representatives intended to facilitate voting in elections. Biden, who served 36 years in the Senate, told ABC News he supported changing the Senate's filibuster rule back to requiring that senators talk continuously on the chamber's floor to hold up a bill, making the first time he has endorsed reforming the procedure. All right, so for those of us who are old, or for those of us who saw the Jimmy Stewart classic movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, back in the day, if you were going to filibuster a bill, you would have to stand up and talk and talk and talk. Sometimes you would read from a telephone book. That's what some senators did. Sometimes you actually had to talk about the bill itself. And as long as you could stand up on the podium and have the physical power to do so, you could hold up the bill. That was changed. Biden is talking about bringing it back to having to stand and talk to filibuster a bill. Biden said he did not think the filibuster needed to be eliminated, but favoring returning it to what it used to be when I first got to the Senate back in the old days. You had to stand up and command the floor. You had to keep talking. Here's the thing too. Democrats, progressives, great ideas. But why can't we execute on them? Why? Because of some quote unquote moderate Republican Democrat senators. These senators, they're Democrats in name, but a lot of the times they're called moderate Democrats. They're more right-wing, like right-wing to right-wing Democrats. Two moderate Senate Democrats, Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, that guy's name comes up a lot, have opposed doing away with the filibuster, though Manchin has suggested changing the filibuster rule to make the parliamentary maneuver more painful. McConnell said those lawmakers were under pressure from Durbin and others to reverse course. Of course they are. But Manchin reaffirmed his position in comments that could allay the Republicans' concerns. The bottom line is you can't get rid of the filibuster, he told reporters. So maybe making senators stand and speak, it's a way of effectively killing the filibuster without killing the filibuster. And you can do it with the idea that, hey, we're just bringing it back old school to how things were back, in the Ice Age when Joe Biden was a senator. So this is fantastic news. And maybe news you hadn't even heard about. See, some of these stories you might have heard in the regular news, but what I try to do is pick the stories that are probably underreported so that we could talk about them here on the show. All right, let's see what's chat doing. You just read Green Eggs and Ham, Dr. Mordecai. Good job. I hear it's a page turner. This is a good point, Scott. Do we call them Democrats in name only? Dino? Yeah, I think that's fair. At least someone should be calling them that. At least someone should be calling these so-called moderate Democrats that hold up the rest of the party dinos, Democrats in name only. Hey, Scott Duke, thanks for hitting the like. It is much appreciated. Hey, Paul Camish, look at you. That's right. We were talking about this on the Best Advice Ever episode. And if you haven't seen Paul Camish's Best Advice Ever episode, it is definitely worth watching. And you and the missus get your vaccines today. So that's fantastic. Glad to hear it. Wild Eden, huh? You're getting yours on Sunday. Excellent. Glad to hear that. Everyone's getting, I'm envious. Everyone's getting their vaccines. What about little Andy? What about me? What about my vaccine? I'm just a narcissist, that's all. But I'm very happy that you are all getting vaccines, that you're getting vaccinated. The more people that get vaccinated, the faster we get vaccinated, the better for all of us. Samuel says, awesome. Everyone's getting the vaccine. Your second dose is April 2nd. Good. My girlfriend, she's working. I don't see her in the chat. My girlfriend's getting her second dose of the vaccine in a couple of days. Actually, it's Thursday or Friday, I think, this week, which is fantastic. All right. So, yeah, David Paul, last Saturday. Very nice. Very nice. So what are the stories that we've gone over so far? The benefits of the legalization of weed. If you haven't, if you're just coming in now, then you should take a look at the early parts of the show where we talk about all the benefits of the legalization of weed. U.S. intelligence reports that says, hey, the Russians were messing around with our election in 2020. No, they didn't mess around with voting machines. They just used an influence campaign to try to sway people's opinions. And of course, we just talked about the filibuster reforms. Am I smiling? Maybe it's a little bit too early for me to smile, but in my heart, I'm smiling due to the filibuster reform that looks like it's coming down the pike. All right, everyone. So what are we going to do? QAnon shaman. Have you seen the video? He's gotten into some trouble with a judge officiating over his trial. Let's take a look at this video. Taking a look at QAnon shaman.
Tonight, new video has been released in the case against the so-called QAnon shaman as he faces charges for his role in the Capitol insurrection. CNN's Brian Todd is covering all the angles for us. Brian, tell us more about these videos and why they were made public.
They were made public, Wolf, because the judge is frankly fed up. Tonight, one of the most visible rioters on January 6th seems to have gotten squarely on the bad side of the judge in his case.
We won the day.
Tonight, Jacob Chansley, the so-called QAnon shaman who wore a headdress and face paint and carried a spear inside the Capitol, has been called out by U.S. District Judge Royce Lambert. The court today releasing two videos, which the judge believes back his assertion in court papers that Chansley, quote, blatantly lied during an interview with 60 Minutes Plus. This is what Judge Lambert believes was a lie.
Police were waving people into the building.
Judge Lambert believes this video, showing rioters breaking windows, then panning over to a shot of Chansley walking through a door, shows Chansley was lying when he claimed police waved him in.
And that shows you that this defendant, Jacob Chansley, has really angered this judge and has really compromised his own credibility in the mind of the judge.
Judge Lambert had already accused Chansley and his attorney of doing that 60 minutes plus interview without the court's permission. Chansley's lawyer claimed they were not trying to be deceitful. Chansley has pleaded not guilty to 6 charges, including violent entry and disorderly conduct in the Capitol attack. Judge Lambert recently ruled that Chansley is too dangerous to release and has to stay in jail pending his trial.
It's only a matter of time. Justice is coming.
One analyst says even though Chansley's not accused of violent behavior against others, his high profile as a symbol of the riot puts added pressure on prosecutors.
The prosecutors have to understand that the public is watching every move they make in this case. And so the notoriety of certain defendants is something they have to take into consideration, and they better make darn sure that they have charged these people appropriately and that they come away with convictions, including on Jacob Chansley.
This comes as the Washington Post reports that the U.S. Army, in the days just ahead of January 6th, pushed to deny the D.C. government's request for a National Guard deployment on the 6th. The Post obtained an internal draft Army memo saying the U.S. military shouldn't be required to help law enforcement with traffic and crowd control unless more than 100,000 demonstrators were expected on the National Mall that day.
Certainly not consistent with past practice. During my time as police chief in Washington, D.C., we utilized the National Guard quite frequently to handle crowd control as well as traffic control. They're very well trained, but we've used it for far less. So I really don't understand what the rationale was for that.
It's important to note that the Army ultimately rejected the idea in that memo and approved the mission. An Army spokeswoman telling CNN that the Defense Department ended up agreeing to provide 340 members of the D.C. National Guard to help with crowd control and street closures. Pentagon officials have denied accusations that the deployment of additional National Guard troops on January 6th was delayed unnecessarily at their end. Pentagon officials also denying that people in their building balked at that request that day.
Well, there you go. QAnon shaman in deep trouble. You know what I'm going to do right after the show? Digital bookworm. Thank you for putting this down because I didn't know about this before this comment right here. Native Americans are making reaction videos to QAnon shaman. I have to check those out. I have to check those out. I'm intrigued with what they have to say. Oh yeah, well that is Trump's fall guy. He's one of them. So if anyone has seen, if you were here, I think it was about a week ago, a couple of days ago, a week ago, there was a video of QAnon shaman's Chansley's mom, and his mom is another QAnon follower, lunatic, delusional, functionally delusional. Yes, functionally. I know what the rationale is for not putting the troops in to allow the insurrection. Yes, Brainbug, I know. Well, you get a gold star. That's exactly what I said when I first heard the story. It's obvious that the commander-in-chief wants the insurrection to go. His people are in the Pentagon. Nothing pisses them off like cultural appropriation. No, dude, I really do have to look at those native tribe members making response videos about QAnon shaman. That sounds crazy, dude. So Theo, I hadn't heard that you're getting a third lockdown, huh? No vaccines, but yet a third lockdown. That sounds crazy. I'm sorry to hear that. I am sorry to hear that. Does the shaman guy? He did no. It's like Dunning-Kruger, right? And yeah. He is impaired. His mom is cognitively impaired, delusional, I think is the appropriate word. But that's the thing about QAnon, about evangelical Christianity. It's a conspiracy theory. It's a worldview with bad guys, with evil forces. And so QAnon theory, evangelical Christianity, they incentivize delusional thinking. They reinforce it, and they do it for profit. All right. Well, this is a good question. How many stars do I need to get a burrito tunic? Very good. I'm not sure. We haven't yet figured out what the actual guidelines are. But as soon as they know, I'll post them on Atheist Comedy Burrito. All right. So we have a last story? Oh, we have a pleasant story coming out of Japan. What's that pleasant story? It is a step forward for the LGBTQ community. Japan court finds same-sex marriage ban unconstitutional. It's good news, but don't get your hopes up right now. That's the high and low of the story, but let's dive in. Japan's constitution defines marriage as, let's see, I want to go from the beginning of the story. All right, so let's just start off here. Sapporo, and I'm mispronouncing that probably. A Sapporo court ruled that the okay, let's start at the beginning, Andy. Am I going to start from the beginning? Let's do this from the beginning. Japan's constitution defines marriage as one between both sexes, but a Sapporo court ruled that this denied the couple's constitutionally guaranteed equality in what is seen as a symbolic victory for the LGBTQ activists. Japan is the only country in the G7 group of developed nations that does not allow same-sex marriage. The case was one of several brought to district courts in various parts of Japan by same-sex couples who are seeking damages for mental suffering. The court rejected the compensation claim of 1 million yen per person for being denied the same rights as heterosexual couples. But it found that not allowing them to marry was unconstitutional. So the couple was seeking damages. What they got was instead a ruling for the cause. But there is still some way to go, even if all the district courts declare same-sex unions unconstitutional. The legalization of same-sex marriages is not guaranteed, as current political momentum to change the laws is lukewarm at best, according to the Japan Times. Japan's constitution, put in place after the end of World War II by the U.S. That's an open secret, right? We already know that. Defines marriage as one of mutual consent between both sexes. The government has said that this means same-sex marriage was not foreseen at the time. But lawyers for the plaintiffs said the phrasing was actually meant to prevent forced marriages and that there is nothing in the Constitution that explicitly prohibits gay marriage. The court, the capital city of the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido, is the first to give its verdict, and its ruling is seen as having significant impact on the other courts. Journalist and LGBTQ rights expert, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, told the BBC that the judgment was well crafted and very strategic and laid the first legal foundation against LGBTQ theories. So this one court decision will affect other court decisions, and this may be getting the ball moving. If there's one thing that we learned from the struggle here in this country, is that things can change very quickly. Sometimes things take a long time to change, but other times, like with gay marriage, it could just flip. Maybe it'll flip in Japan quickly. Maybe it won't. Only time will tell. But good news overall. Scott Duke. Why, thank you. I cannot tell you how happy that makes me feel. The pennies count. The pennies count. So good news from Japan. LGBTQ court case went in favor of same-sex marriage. Hopefully this will get or continue the momentum towards same-sex unions, same-sex marriages being legally upheld in Japan. So once again, thank you, Scott Duke, for the kind words in the chat, of course, and for the financial support. Every shekel counts, right? Theo says, bouncing back to QAnon, QAnon is a dangerous mother of many conspiracy theory. I know harmless esoterics who bought into this crap. Defeats every little critical anti-establishment or religious guy. It does, and you're right about that. Blazing, a DKK 40 super sticker. Thank you, Blazing. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. Actually, I don't know if you saw this. I posted this on the channel yesterday. Jason Folks and I sat down and chatted a few days ago. I haven't released the full video of our conversation because it's the big fat Easter special. That's what I'm calling it and nicknaming it right now. But I put a quick 60-second video out in a vertical format. It's very popular with the kids, I hear. And Jason pointed out that Charles Manson and the Manson family, they're actually a mystery cult. The family was a mystery cult, a Christian mystery cult. And within 60 seconds, it's actually 54 seconds, he lays out the basic facts, the evidence that points towards the Manson family being a Christian mystery cult. So it's worth seeing. I didn't post it I didn't put it in the show this morning, but it is the last video before this one, and it's well worth your 55 seconds to check it out. Danish Kronens. There we go. So yeah, before we put a bow on this, before we tie it up, let's check out something funny. Maybe feline related. Maybe.
I'm just going to borrow the chips for a moment. Here. Give them. Just give them back. Give me the chips. Oh. Okay, I don't want any.
The cat wants its chips. The cat wants its chips. That's what it does. The cat isn't even going to eat the chips, but it just wants the bag of chips just for eating, just for having the bag. All right, everyone. So that was the show. That was the show today? I think that was the show. I'm pretty sure that was the show. We covered a lot of topics. I had fun. I had fun. I hope you had fun too. Hope you learned something. We shared some laughs. And what am I doing today at 3 p.m.? Doing Jenga, 3 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow I'm doing the show all over again, 9 a.m. Doing news, sharing laughs, sharing memes, sharing videos while eating, right? And we got a show coming up Sunday night. My buddy Jack, who I do the 10:30 p.m. show with, he is Kendra. Good morning. No, Kendra, we covered many things this morning, Kendra. If you're just stopping by right now, legalization of weed, all the benefits of weed, U.S. intelligence report that shows that Russia was helping out Trump this last election cycle, filibuster reform, video of the shaman getting busted, and Japan making a small step forward for the LGBTQ community. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, Dr. Mordecai. Sorry, well, you could stay here. I mean, there's a lot of videos to see, to tell you the truth, if you really wanted to hang out. Gardening to do before it rains. All right, everyone. So, hey, I had fun. J.D. Parks, glad to see you. And thanks for the kind words, Derek Cruz. Thanks for the kind words. All right, everyone. Be good. What's my epic pose today? I don't know. I'm going to go with my glasses. My glasses are right here. And so open up the classic book. And even though I don't need my glasses to read, I'm still going to make it appear like I'm reading through Hitler's Pope here. And this is my classic pose to end the show. Classic pose.